Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, we're sifting through the carnage of the NCAA March Madness tournament, and Rob Browne here with you on this Monday college football, basketball, baseball blitz. Heard the term sweep used a lot, that referring to a lot of the SEC baseball series this weekend. Man, it was ugly. A long way to go. 9 more series left, but we'll talk about that. Spring football practice is underway. We have a great lineup today. First off, let me say, man, I agree with Kerry Jones, one of our listeners on the show, put out some great content. Just going back through it over the weekend. Is Wendell Green the only Auburn player who can consistently shoot free throws? I mean, how do you get a college scholarship if you can't? But that's the term control the controllables. You go do that on your own. If you can't shoot free throws, it will cost your team. It'll cost you a national championship. I remember Memphis versus Kansas back in the championship game, April of 2008. 2 minutes left. They're up by 9, but they couldn't hit free throws, and Kansas won the game. When is the message going to get through, man? It's not all about, dunks and shooting threes. You've got to be able to shoot free throws. But that cost a lot of teams dearly in this tournament. But let me say this, also great picture from Dave Cody out in Bellingham, Washington, of Mount Baker. Was it 10,726 feet, covered in snow, looking from the golf course. What a view. And it was packed yesterday out there. So listeners all over the place, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Great lineup today. Matt Dean, the coach over at Rhodes College, the Ivy League of Memphis, in its own league, Ivy League, Rhodes College. We're going to talk basketball, sports, all over the place. Segment 2, Doug Dean checks in from the Magic City. They've moved on. First 2 rounds were there, hosted at Legacy Arena, and a great job was done, and I hope everybody had a great time. Segment top of hour number 2, Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. He, along with Frank Duffy, 2 of the most interesting men in the world. And in the final segment, Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, calling the Hogs, man. We talked about it. Now, I don't know if there's ever been another school in SEC history make 3 consecutive Sweet 16s. Now they're going for the Elite 8, the Final 4, the whole deal. But we talked about it because they get it all together. Watch out. Okay, we're here 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Hit that orange Patreon button, man. Keep this thing rolling along. Also, 50-plus hours of content a month. So you do $10 a month on Patreon. That helps. That's about 40 cents a show. Nothing finer anywhere. We'll start off batting up in the leadoff position, Matt Dean from Davenport, Iowa. And Matt, look, man, the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12. But this is the celebration of the mid-majors, man. Look around us. How much have we talked about, and you know this as a coach, a team that's played together 4 or 5 years versus a collection of one-and-done type mentality of, I don't care, it's all about me. Give me the ball. I was open, coach. You didn't see me. It's not all about that. It's about teams, and the Sweet 16 is further proof of that. I'll let you take it from here, Matt Dean.
Well, first of all, Rob, I will make sure I pay off our bet. Your Auburn Tigers got my Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, it's interesting. I wish they would have missed some of those free throws against my Hawkeyes. It would have been a different game.
Yeah.
The reality is, I thought you guys played really good basketball for a game and a half. You're up 10 at half against Houston, and Houston kind of looked, a little disarrayed at halftime. Yeah. They were having a hard time. And I can't remember the last time they gave up 41 points in the first half, right? And Second half, just the first 5 minutes, they come out and they punch you guys. And then when it was going back and forth, you guys were getting to the foul line. I think he went to the line 36 times in the game.
37, yeah.
37, I'm sorry, 37.
Yeah.
And make, 19 of them or 20 or
yeah,
whatever the
19.
was. You just can't be trading basket for 1 out of 2. It's just a per possession nightmare. And but going back to your original point, you look right now in the Sweet 16, you got a really talented San Diego State team that probably no one expected to be here. Princeton, I mean, not only did they beat Arizona, they played really well in the second round. So they're in the Sweet 16. Florida Atlantic. We talked about that as a possible upset for the Tigers. And boy, I couldn't believe how poorly they guarded the last underneath out of bounds play. I really thought that was shocking to me. All credit to Florida Atlantic. And you see Penny visibly upset throwing his water bottle after that game. But they, you can say what you want about the timeout call that was missed. The official can't call the timeout till he knows a team has the ball. And it looked like, even though Lomax was there calling timeout, the official's trying to identify to make sure Memphis has the ball, and or it's not a jump possession. So, great games. I stayed up last night late. I watched Gonzaga hold off TCU. But one thing my last point to you, Rob, on this is the SEC proved its worthiness, didn't they? 3 teams in the Sweet 16. Besides Alabama, who's clearly, I would say, favored from here on out. Arkansas with a great performance. They were down 10 with like 10 minutes to go, and they just fought back. And then I thought Tennessee just really put it to Duke. And I don't want to hear these pundits say I heard Seth Greenberg say the game was it was a horrible officiated game. Well, come on, man. I mean, the reality is you got to step up. I mean, you're going to get different crews every night during the year. There are games that are going to be played tighter or looser, and that game was obviously not tightly called, and Tennessee took advantage of it. They were better than Duke, a lot better than Duke.
Yeah.
So that's my takeaways in the first. And right now, my original Final Four is still intact. I had Alabama, Tennessee, Houston, UCLA. They're all still alive, baby.
Yeah, and for these talking heads on TV to be whining about the officiating, I don't like it. I mean, there are times when it's just so bad you can't help it. But it's not why Tennessee beat Duke. Tennessee beat Duke. Tennessee's better.
We saw the SEC all year called like that, didn't we, Rob? There were games like that
Yeah.
all year.
Oh, God,
SEC.
yeah.
Watch Auburn,
Yeah.
Tennessee when it was 46-43. It was a rock fight. Auburn
Yeah.
could have used a couple calls in that game they didn't get, So, come on.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, and that's what happens is you got a narrative that a lot of these guys want to push, and it doesn't go their way. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. They just want to blame somebody else. And lack of accountability is it's a problem, and nobody wants to take. Look, I missed on some, but I got a lot right. But I like what you said. I'm glad that you cleared that up about the Memphis game. It made you sick at your stomach to watch the end of it.
Yeah.
They're 26-8 on the year, but at the end, the timeout. Yeah, I like it. The official has to know who has the ball. That's coming from you, a coach. You know the rule book backwards and forwards, Matt.
Well, if I can't see clearly if it's a jump ball or who has possession, how can I give you a timeout, right? If it's a loose ball, my first thing as an official is I'm identifying who has the ball, right? And it was like it was a rugby scrum right there. And I feel bad for a lot of my Memphis friends this weekend because honestly, they had a clear path to the Elite Eight if they win that game. They did,
yeah,
and had made the Final Four. But no one's talking about the terrible turnover they had at 19 seconds ago when Kendrick Davis threw the ball to FAU in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic has to foul there. The Tigers are up 1. and Memphis throws the ball to him. It was terrible. And that's how it led to that timeout being called on a possession ball situation. And then the poor defense underneath out of bounds. I mean, and then you go to 4 minutes to go in the game, you got guys in the huddle jawing at each other, pushing at each other. You know, come on.
Didn't one of them, Matt, did one of the players push Penny? I couldn't remember.
I don't think they pushed Penny. I think Dandridge pushed Davis because Davis was coming at him. Yeah. And I get it. Dave was frustrated. He sprained his ankle coming down that shot. And I don't know why. I think he was just kind of jawing at everybody, and Dandridge took offense to it, I think. I don't know for a fact. Yeah. But it's not a great look when you're trying to get your team to calm down in a really good ball game, and and the camera's looking at your bench like, what is going on? What people don't realize is that probably happens in that program every day.
Yeah. Well,
so
hey,
that's just the reality.
Yeah, and you live in Memphis. You want to see the University of Memphis do well, and certainly Penny for sure. But and also I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan. Look, the cameras getting over there. God, it's intense, man. The people that are critical of that, and I know it doesn't. But God, if you've ever played sports or try getting on a trading floor, in an investment world, trying to get a trader to help you get something done. Trust me. That you don't want to be hearing that. And I don't like it when a camera in a football game hears something said. Man, that is the heat of competition. So, and that's why I said, Rob, I believe that they are pretty intense every day. So it wasn't shocking to me. Yeah. But, at that point in time, I was just trying to figure out why Kendrick was upset. And I'm just guessing it was frustration at getting hurt, That's sure. And they want to win. I mean, God bless America. They are competitors, man. Yes. They were you know what? The opposite would be apathy. And I saw that a year ago when Kentucky was defeated by St. Peter's. At the end of that game, I saw Oscar Tshiebwe and maybe Toppin, two players that looked like they were visibly upset. Look, you show me a locker room full of guys after a game like that are punching in the lockers and in tears and upset. That's the guys who are going to want to get better. And that's what it boils down to. And man, you're right. What a year for a team, it'll be it's just so much fun to watch every game. It was wide open. And you know what's interesting about Florida Atlantic, Matt? They'd only played one team all season long that was in the field of 68. That doesn't matter if you've got a good team, and they won 31 games in the regular season. That wasn't luck.
No, listen, I may have told you this last week. My former assistant is the head women's coach there, and I texted her. Okay, and I said, okay, and she played at Memphis. She was an excellent player, Jennifer Sullivan, and we were talking, and I said, hey, can Florida Atlantic, can you guys play with Memphis? She said, absolutely. I'm really torn up because I went to Memphis, but I think, I'm an owl now. I coach in the women's program. I think it's going to be a great game. And now they've won 33 games. So, I mean, Tennessee is going to be favored, but they're going to have their hands full with a team that, quite frankly, reminds me a little bit of the Louisiana team that the Vols struggled to finish off on Friday night, right? Or Thursday night. So, I think it's going to be a good game. I honestly think that there are two teams that kind of – one team that surprised me yesterday, I thought Indiana, I watched Miami barely beat my alma mater, Drake. Drake had them down 8 with 4 minutes to play. And Miami came back and won that game. I thought for sure Indiana was going to give everything they had, and Miami just handled the whole game. And from a tactician standpoint – they spread them out. They drove. They kicked for threes. If you can't guard someone off the dribble, Rob, this is just coaching 101 in my world. Mm-hmm. Mix in a little zone and see what their zone offense is like. Maybe you don't have to guard them off the dribble, right? But if you get beat off the dribble every time and you're either fouling or it's a kick to a wide open three, try something else. And I thought Coach Woodson got out coached badly last night, and I thought Miami just took it to Indiana. You talk about a team that just didn't look, they didn't look like they had a plan against Miami. And
Yeah.
Miami showed me something. And Larinaga said it in the post game. He goes, we didn't play very well there tonight. We were lucky to make it here. And by golly, we played well today. And if Miami plays that way, they still have a path to the Elite Eight. They played really well yesterday. I mean, I'm not going to give this all on just Indiana's failures. It was Miami playing really well.
Yeah. I mean, Miami's good. Jim Larinaga is, we talked about him. They were 15-5. They won the ACC.
They did.
They're the only team still in the tournament from the ACC. And Duke's out. I mean, Pitt's out. Look, this is kill or be killed at this point. You one shot, one kill. You lose, you go home. And that's what makes this so much fun to watch. But I like what your former assistant coach, who's now at Florida Atlantic, said. I'm torn, but
yeah.
Conference USA, Bo Carter talked about it watching that tournament. He was there out in Dallas, Florida Atlantic, and he talked about it. He goes, look, they're good. And there's 357 teams, Matt, eligible to make the big dance. And we're about to go into a break. We're going to come back because there's a lot to talk about. But, a team that was really under the radar most of the year, early they were out there, but then they kind of faded back. And here they come again, the Huskies, UConn.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a few national championships in their trophy case, 3 or 4 of them. People forget about that. And, that Arkansas's got to play UConn. We're going to talk about that. But, God, what – and this is one of the best tournaments because it's been the toughest to predict these games. But we talk about it, teams – and guys that are playing together and chemistry matter. Right back after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Listening to it, watching, and then having to listen because I had to run an errand Saturday afternoon from watching so much basketball. The multi-view, by the way, on the screen is awesome.
We saw that,
4 games. And it's hard to get better than that. But the way Arkansas did it against Kansas, and Bill Self did not coach, but he had a hand in the game plan and whatever. But
sure.
Arkansas, that the thing that Eric Musselman talked about late season was you guys are just not tough. I mean, they would have a lead, 14 points, it'd be tied, and they'd lose the last few minutes, but they toughened up. And we kept talking about, man, if all these guys had been playing together from the first game all season long, how good would they be? And at the end of the season, they were able to do it. Now they're in the Sweet 16, but to beat a number 1 seed, Kansas. You remember last year Arkansas beat the number 1 overall seed, Gonzaga.
Yeah.
It's just Eric Musselman has those guys believing they're hog wild, man. Nobody's going to beat them in this tournament. That's a great state of mind.
Another team, another quality they have, Rob, I think they're a very resilient bunch because I watched them play several times in the SEC, and they get down 15, 18 points. It didn't matter. They were going to fight you for 40 minutes. And they were down 51-41 yesterday. 2 days ago. And the next thing you know, they had taken the lead. And Kansas, I don't think, was prepared. I think Listen, Bill had he had his hands in the game plan. I'll give you that. But not having him on the sidelines when they're making those runs, when you're going to call timeout, when you're not going to call timeout, it matters. The guy's a national champion. And it's unfortunate. The biggest thing is his health. But right now, you talk about a game. I watch UConn, man. They get up and down. They get frenzied. I mean, Hurley is just into it. The fan base is into it. They're hungry. They've won national championships before. I think the last one was 2014. But that's going to be a tremendous game. And I think the winner of that game is going to have a chance to go to the Final Four. I mean, obviously being the Elite Eight, but I mean, the other side of the bracket right now, I still like UCLA because they play great defense. Gonzaga sold me last night. I thought for a while TCU was going to beat them in the first half, but Gonzaga just finished that game off, and it was a tremendous basketball game. And I'm a big fan of coaches. Mark Few is one of those guys I would love to see get a ring. I mean,
and I like what you just said, and I didn't mean to say that it didn't matter, because even though Bill Self probably had a hand, we know he did, but him not being there, that's why he's paid that money to be on the sidelines. He's not paid to. I still don't get some of these ESPN games. They call them virtually. Baseball game the other night. I see these two guys look like they're broadcasting from their living room. Right. I mean, come on, man. Are we going to have people just never go back out in public again? I mean, get on with your lives. But it's another story. But golly, Bill Self he's a great coach. We all know that. Kansas, just to be able to do that year in and year out, they're doing that in the toughest basketball league in America. And what does that say about Kentucky? I heard John Calipari's comments, and everybody knows that, Coach. Every time Kentucky gets on the court, the other team's playing out of their minds. But he's right. If you come to Kentucky, you've got to know that. You've got to understand that you cannot just get by the skin of your teeth, and you got to work extra hard, because you're going to get everybody's best. You're probably their biggest game of the year, maybe the biggest game in school history when they play you. And I don't think he has a roster full of guys who understand that.
Getting to Kentucky, Rob, I have a lot of friends that are big parts and big believers in Big Blue Nation, right? And some of them were really frustrated with Cal this year because they felt like he kind of talked down to him. He struck a chord with some of the fan base about getting on them and questioning some things on their support. And I've had multiple colleagues text me after that game last night. Cal's going to have to reinvent himself a little bit these next couple of years to get that thing back in the Final Four, because people right now are not convinced they're the same program. And I'm not saying that is the case. I think he's one of the finest coaches in America. But right now, they have not been to a Sweet 16 in a few years. So that it's the old saying, it's what have you done for me lately? And right now, I was convinced second half of the SEC, the arrow was pointed in the right direction. And I will tell you, Kentucky led most of that game yesterday. It's a back and forth game in the second half, and Kansas State hit two. I mean, we're talking arcing, moon launching threes that just changed the whole complexion of the game. If they miss one of those, Kentucky may win. And so Kansas State, they lost to a really, really good team. And Rob, arguably the best conference this year. Though after watching the first two rounds, you can make an argument that the SEC is the best conference. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, because quite frankly, they have three teams left in the Sweet 16. The Big 12, I believe, has two, right?
Kansas State and Texas.
Am I missing anyone there? I'm just trying to – I'll tell you another stat. Of the 16 teams left last night, they're represented by 11 conferences. How about that?
Yeah. That's what we're talking about, the teams.
There's more parity, which goes back to your whole point about the portal and the NIL. It's, for as much as we don't like it, in basketball, it's created some parity.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's because, and look who was on Kansas State's team that beat Kentucky, the guy from Florida. And Buddy, I didn't realize this. Keontae Johnson was the player who literally, they thought he was dead on the court at Florida. Right. Buddy Martin said, did you know that he said this on the Saturday roundtable on Sidelines of GatorBaitMedia.com? Buddy said he couldn't come back to Florida because they couldn't get insurance on him. Did you know that?
Right. I didn't know that, but that makes sense because I do know this. I think he was very appreciative of the medical help that staff and university provided. I have never said that.
Should be.
Right.
Yeah.
But, so it wasn't like, I believe Mike White was his coach at the time. Is that correct when that happened?
Yes. Yes.
And, now he's playing for Jerome Tang. And you talk about a first-year head coach who's had a terrific year, Jerome Tang,
Yeah. I mean,
they're tough, man. They're tough.
Yeah. K-State, man.
Go ahead.
Unreal. No, go ahead.
No. The thing that brought a little tears to my eyes yesterday, and I really thought about this, when you have to take Michigan State's basketball life, it's not a conference game, it's not a non-conference game, it's an elimination game in the NCAA tournament. What better coach in America do we have right now in a one-game, game 7, whatever you want to call it, live or die game than Tom Izzo? And his guys fought for him yesterday. They fought for that university. They fought for that entire staff. They fought for the fan base. They put it to Marquette. They did a great job and won that game. And I had Marquette in my Elite Eight. I thought they were really good this year. And the Big East has been represented well in this tournament. UConn, I believe Creighton and Xavier, I think, all three of those schools. But, boy, I tell you what, Michigan State, I was really impressed with Tyson Walker and what the Spartans did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Izzo, he's been to 8 or 9 Final Fours. He last
15,
one.
16s. Think about
and
that.
how many?
15,
how many?
16s.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a great coach. And yes, they hadn't won the national championship since 2000. They had that group of the players from Flint called the Flintstones, Flint, Michigan. But he's always there. And I think he is an elite coach.
Yes, he is.
And those guys, they always play a full 40 for you. That's what I love is, and when Iowa came back and beat them late in the season, that was huge. And just you watching Iowa play. Yeah. And people say, well, how'd you like to play them in Iowa City or Des Moines or St. Louis? Is it that they're as good as they were supposed to be? They can score a lot of points. I think Auburn just in that particular game, you did have a home court advantage. Auburn was up by 17, and real quick, it's a 4-point game.
I was proud of that. As a Hawkeye fan, when it was 58-41, I thought, maybe we were going to pack it in. No, we didn't. We cut it. We cut to 4, like you said.
Fran McCaffrey, that guy, that's Billy McCaffrey's brother. They're always good. I mean, you just expect that out of them. And I'm sitting there looking at all these different matchups around the country. UCLA, Gonzaga. You're a big Mick Cronin fan. Came from Cincinnati.
I am.
I mean, he just immediately got UCLA playing a tougher brand of basketball, didn't he?
He did. And if you look at the way UCLA plays now, it's a little bit like the way Michigan State plays. And UCLA, quite frankly, Northwestern, you talk about a team, Northwestern was down 13. UCLA had a wide open 3 to make it 16, missed it. And the next thing you know, Northwestern went on a 17-4 run, and the game's tied at 45. And it was a back and forth. UCLA won a relatively close game, and I'll tell you, who did a great job. And I got on 360 CBS Sports postgame, Rob, and watched some of these interviews. Mick Cronin was very complimentary of Chris Collins and vice versa. Chris Collins Mick Cronin made an interesting statement, and I'm not taking a shot at Duke right here when I said this. Mick Cronin said Friday night after the game, he said, Chris Collins could have stayed at Duke as an assistant and waited there for his chance. But he took a chance. He went up and coached Northwestern, one of the hardest jobs in America. And if you look at it, he's taken into their only 2 appearances in NCAA history were coached by Chris Collins. But he doesn't have a shining record because Northwestern, like Vanderbilt, is a tough job. But I thought it was interesting because Collins went out there and took his chance to be a head coach. And then John Schreier, very deserving as well, took over the Duke job for Coach K, but Chris Collins can coach.
Yeah. Well, how about the coach guy at Penn State? I mean,
Micah, terrific.
Yeah, I mean, you just like my dad said. He goes, I didn't know they had a basketball team. He was kidding, but I mean, they haven't been to the Final Four. They've been one time. I think it was 1954. They played LaSalle. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you wonder, have they ever really pushed basketball at Penn State? But the exciting thing in watching the tournament, and Arizona went out early. We haven't talked much at all about Princeton. I watched Princeton, I think, play Yale for the Ivy League championship.
I watched that too, yeah. On
CBS Sports. And Pete Creel was the coach there for a long time. They used to play that slow down brand of basketball, but they took out Arizona, and it wasn't a blowout. Then they beat Missouri by 17, I think. And
Missouri.
United States has a good team. That's a good team. That was the one that was more impressive because they didn't get caught up in beating Arizona. They went next.
Well, and here's the thing. Everyone was like, couldn't believe they beat Arizona. And me and you too, probably. But what they did to Missouri was just as equally impressive. I mean, we're talking about a Missouri team that had a really good year in the SEC, and we're bragging about the SEC, rightfully so. Princeton now plays Creighton. They have a path to end up playing potentially Alabama in the regional final. Isn't that crazy? And that's it just goes back to the way basketball's built. You only play with 5 guys or 5 ladies at one time, which means from a recruiting standpoint, numbers don't matter. And if you build the right chemistry over the right period of time and you get people to stay, you can play with anyone. It's a little bit like Tennessee-Duke. Tennessee was playing with 23 and 24-year-olds against Duke's 18-year-olds. And in a physical game, the 23-year-olds won.
Oh, yeah. There's no comparison between an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old. Think about when you're in 9th grade and then there's the seniors.
Right.
We had Doug Dean's going to be on with us a minute, Matt. So hang on with us if you can. AU Dose. And he put out some great information last week. There were 11 players in this year's NCAA tournament, many of whom are still playing, 25 years or older.
Wow.
Virus, whatever you say. But God, Matt, think about if you're a coach and you've got that kind of maturity, that kind of experience. It pays off. And you're right about that. The head coach, knowing when and when not to call a timeout.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can go buy the most expensive duck call on the market. But if you blow it at the wrong time when the ducks are coming in with their wings cupped and their feet out and they're wanting to land and you scream at them, they're not coming in. You call a timeout at the wrong time, you shake the players' heads, don't you? You make them think they're looking over my shoulder.
Well, I really like Doug's stat too, because, maturity matters. And that's why I think it's really hard on a lot of Memphis fans right now. You look at DeAndre Williams, who I believe was 26, I'm not mistaken. And you look at Kendrick Davis, who is a senior transfer from SMU. Tell me, Rob, you and I got Memphis ties. Tell me the last duo that played for Memphis that was better than that. I can't think of that. It's been a long time. I mean, Davis was legitimately, he finished second in the running for AAC Player of the Year, and Williams is one of the best rebounder scorers inside in the country.
Yeah,
they had two guys that could really have led them to the Final Four, and they're out because of a poorly executed defensive stop on underneath that bounce 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, and I think Penny is such a competitor.
Oh, yes.
I mean, my God. And I love Memphis. I do. I'm from Memphis.
Yes.
I graduated from Auburn, but I grew up going to Memphis games. I've been to a lot of them over the years. There's not a person in Memphis, whether you went there or not, that doesn't follow that team. When they're winning, I mean, it's like Elvis is alive. The barbecue's cooking. It's just something magical about it. We're going to be right back with more Monday March Madness right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Matt, you're looking at the big picture right now, and I'm getting like one of our listeners just said, Princeton has more talent than they're used to. I don't know if guys are coming into Princeton via the portal, but man, this is, Furman got in the league this year. First time they haven't won a game in the tournament since 1974, the Paladins, but Southern Conference. Sanford was the co-conference champion. Furman won the conference championship, but a rising star, I believe, in coaching, Bucky McMillan, took Mountain Brook to multiple state championships, and he moved, 2 miles down the street in Birmingham over on Lakeshore to Sanford. He's got Martin Newton as his athletic director.
Yeah.
They've got money. They've got facilities. It's a beautiful campus. It's a great place to go to school, great business school, pharmacy, law school, Cumberland. That's what I love about this is that I don't want to see super conferences. I don't want to see us take away that drive. That's what makes America the greatest country in the world. That's why I believe in American exceptionalism, is that we have these opportunities. You can't legislate and pass laws to make teams great. That's got to come from within, okay? No amount of federal rulings or whatever can do it. Just like Title IX. Title IX is supposed to protect women's sports, and it's great. I have 2 daughters, 2 sons. You've coached women. Women should have the same opportunities in sports as men to compete against other women. I mean, it's pretty damn simple, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and, you look at the teams left, and I'll go back to you mentioned Furman. Furman is one of our biggest competitors at Rhodes for students sometimes. I mean, you get down to a Final 3. Furman is just tremendous academic school, and their athletic profile has really increased. And when you win an NCAA tournament game the way they did with that turnover against Virginia, sometimes that applicant pool increases. Go ask Florida Gulf Coast that one year when they went to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point. Yeah. Hey, Doug Dean is on with us now. AU Dose in Birmingham. And Matt Dean and I, Doug, have been talking about this March Madness, and we alluded to your statistic you gave me last week. 11 players in the tournament, 25 years or older. What's the oldest player? I'm curious who that is. Have we got anybody in their 30s? Do we have 31, 32?
I didn't keep track of that. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Doug.
The thing I want to say right out of the gate, and congratulations to the 3 SEC teams, tied only by, was it the Big East with 3?
I think so.
And ACC yawn. No blue blood left. Miami represents them. Kind of saw that coming, didn't we all? And then, but specifically Tennessee surprised me a little because they had kind of been up and down late in the season, and they lost Ziegler. But you only have to get hot for 6 games, right? 3 or 4, 5, 6 games. The only thing Arkansas's head coach Musselman, is that an oxymoron, Rob? Because when he rips his shirt off after a big win, he's not a muscle man.
No. No, he's Woody Allen, man.
he what is the Memphis gym? You need to get him in there.
rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. Let's get him a membership.
Yeah. Wow. What a wild weekend it was. And I'm an English major, Rob, which just made me unemployable when I graduated undergrad. I guess I wouldn't trade it now, but man, the tale of 2 cities for the Auburn Tigers. If only games lasted just one half. And credit, I'm a little late on this analysis. The game was Saturday night, but credit the great Kelvin Sampson for what was kind of a high-risk strategy the second half. He said, I'm going to go hack a shack. I don't think Auburn can hit free throws. He was right. If you just shoot 80% free throws in the second half, I think the Houston, to their credit, was 100% on their charity stripe. Yeah. And as we all know, like the great Izzo said, if you don't play well in March Madness, you go home. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, he's right. And I mean, Kelvin Sampson, I thought Bruce Pearl, guys, looked like he had a great strategy of go right at Houston and make them foul you. But Janai Broome got beat up so badly, maybe his arms were, I don't know what happened, but that first 5 minutes of the second half, you knew Houston was going to come out and make a run, and Auburn just couldn't respond at the free throw line. 19 of 37.
Yeah, and I guess for us fans, the game March Madness and the basketball gods can be fickle and cruel. Just ask Duke, just ask UVA, those lying, cheating, double dribbling hooas. I'm not playing. In case you got any Virginia fans on here, ask. Gosh, Purdue, hello. I mean, that's like 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years that they've been an early exit. And someone observed last night, I don't know how you would prove or disprove this. When you look at the Big Ten and arguably the style that most of them play, does that become a problem for them in March Madness when you run into these completely different styles with a lot of speed and shooting it from the 3 and teams with all guards and just a lot of different styles? That I don't know the answer to that, but Tom Izzo seems to have dealt with it just fine, right?
Yeah. Matt, what do you think? You're a Hawkeye fan, and you're in Memphis, and you've coached women's basketball 16 years. You've got friends all over the country in coaching. What is it about the Big Ten? Why a team like Purdue has gone out 3 times so early, such a high seed?
Well, Doug touched on it a little bit. I mean, there was a couple comments I saw last night. I mean, you look at the athletes that Miami had, and you had some guys in Indiana that just couldn't guard them. And quite frankly, I was disappointed that Mike Woodson didn't travel the zone. Take away the penetration, make them make. I mean, I know they shot the 3 well, but they were wide open because they were penetrating and kicking, right? And the thing about Izzo, and he's been to 15 Sweet 16s. even the 25 straight NCAA tournaments. I was telling Doug, I was telling Rob before you came on, I said, when you have to take away Michigan State's basketball life, I'm not talking non-conference, not talking a conference game, not even a conference tournament game. When you take away their season, that 40 minutes is the hardest 40 minutes you'll play. Izzo's teams are just, they're tougher. And in an era where we're always talking about you can't coach kids tough anymore, well, that's not the case in Michigan State.
Man, I love
it. He's the Nick Saban of college basketball. I mean, they get after it. And when you have to end that season, I mean, I thought Marquette, I had him in my Elite Eight. I thought Marquette was the best team in the Big East. And they had a great, terrific year. And Michigan State just said, we're going to guard the heck out of you. And they guard. And that's another thing, Doug. I think in the Big Ten, traditionally, Michigan State is the best defensive team. And you listen to Izzo and see, I couldn't believe when they lost to Iowa this year, up 11 with a minute to go. I couldn't believe it. That doesn't happen to Michigan State. But he said this team has gotten better defensively. They had to, and they worked on some things. And right now, they're going to be a tough out because they're going to fight you for 40 minutes. And the rest of the Big Ten is not built that way. I'm just telling you. The closest thing to Michigan State, ironically, this year was Northwestern defensively. And Northwestern gave UCLA everything they wanted before losing a close game.
Are you at break now, Rob?
No. Just this. I think I love this analogy.
Well, but that's a great take there, Matt. And I don't know, the fans we're so. And by the way, Marquette was my champion. And I try to be a little contrarian instead of picking a 1 seed. And there's only 2 1s left. I wouldn't want to be a 1 seed, and maybe Alabama. Alabama, if they can keep playing the way they are, is without a doubt going to be a tough out. And on paper, everyone's saying they caught a break with a 2 and a 4 getting knocked out of that region. Okay, be careful about that. You know, there's some teams that thought they caught a break playing FDU, FAU, Alabama fan. If I'm an Alabama fan, I probably am telling myself, boy, we caught a break playing San Diego State. But, you know, that if you get to the Sweet 16, beating some of the teams these guys have, all of them really, and you're a team to be taken seriously, and you can get hot for one game. And as we've seen, that you don't have to win best of 3, best of 5. You just have to be hot for one game.
Yeah, and I think almost I agree with what you're both saying is the regular season, you know, you go in there trying to win every game, but you can afford to lose a few during the regular season. But in this one, I mean, these are real bullets. I mean, this is the real deal. You're not shooting blanks. And golly, I mean, I think now Buddy Martin on the show Saturday called it Farley Dickinson. I don't know if it's Fairley or Farley, but who would have thought you'd see Sunday? Fairleigh Dickinson University playing Florida Atlantic. But that's what we love about March Madness. And I'm with Matt. That's why I love Tom Izzo. You'll see him at Grizzlies games sometimes. He'd come watch Draymond Green, or he's got players all over the NBA. But you can coach kids tough today. And to all these coaches out there that think you can't coach them tough, shame on you, because you're just enablers. I mean, I actually every now and then get a compliment from my kids. They say, "Dad, you're so mean," or whatever. And I'm not. But I just look at the people who have influenced me. They're not always real nice to me, but I respect them. It's just my take.
Rob, I'm gonna drag you out of your social commentary, but Dr. Phil. But and we'll
get off of my lawn.
But I wish wouldn't it be cool, and maybe somebody's done it, if you could, because I do this for a living, and that is the great science of psychological assessments, profiles of personalities, leadership styles. I use one called the Judgment Index that actually has an athletics competitiveness measure that you can do. But if you could, when making out your brackets, if you could add component on the head coach's psychological profile. And what I saw from Kelvin Sampson, he goes down 41-31 in what was considered kind of a quasi home game for Auburn Saturday night. And it was Kelvin Sampson's, if you ask me, he's a fine coach, his mental toughness that sort of transmits to his players. And like Matt was saying earlier, he's completely spot on. Izzo probably didn't have the most pure, elite, talented roster compared to some of the Big Ten teams. But what he did have was when it really got to nut cutting, his players had been treated toughly. If you watch Izzo throughout the year, he gets all over his players, and it probably even challenges him recruiting some players who are more the prima donna that don't want to be blessed out like that and disrespected on the TV camera. So if you could add a psychological profile, look who's left. Izzo would be way up the list for me. I think Rick Barnes might also be up. That Tennessee team played. The whole world was saying Duke is going to make the Final Four. Give me a break. I'm sorry to be a Duke hater, but I don't hate Duke. I hate the propaganda machine that kicks in every time March comes around. And sometimes Duke is worthy of it, not this year.
Matt, I agree with what Doug just nailed it. It's the propaganda machine. It's not that we hate Duke. It's just, be objective. You're supposed to be objective.
Yeah, Doug. I was watching ESPN. Seth Greenberg, just who I respect. Seth, he was a good coach. Just ripping and calling the officiating horrific, and I'm like, man, there may have been a couple calls. I'll tell you what was bad was when they took away Roach's fifth foul and gave it to Proctor. I mean, so
that
it's
was,
not like
that was outrageous. And it was right for it's like somebody walking in a bank in broad daylight, holding everybody up and walking out with the money, and everybody sees it and lets it go. But I'm going to take this foul off of a good player who's going to foul out and put it on a medium player. Good God in heaven. And it really was not even a close call.
What was it close?
By the way, Rob, I think almost all of us, including me, should just take a pause on blaming the referees. Referees didn't hurt Auburn Saturday. The referees helped them.
Yeah.
They put line 36 times, make a few front ends of one-on-one, and maybe shoot better than 12% from the field in the second half. But then you step back from it. What did Bruce build this year, Rob? He built the ceiling was a 21-win team, make the tournament, maybe win your first round, mission accomplished, right?
Yeah.
You got to build a better, tougher roster, and he needs better, more elite scorers, and then he can make a deeper run.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you may not be the most. How many times have we heard this from the great coaches that we respect? We may not be the most talented team, the tallest, the biggest, the fastest, whatever, a bunch of 4 and 5 stars, but we can certainly be the toughest, most well-prepared, hungriest, get after your ass team for a full 40 or a full 60 in America. And that's going to be our pledge to you. Tom Izzo is the kind of guy, every time you see him, you're thinking they got a chance. He is a winner in every respect. I didn't know 15 Sweet 16s. There's the Big Ten, and then there's Tom Izzo. He is the one constant in that league. And Frank, he'd be fun as hell to go drink beer with, man. He probably likes hams. I'll tell you, I won that steamer pack of crystals from Matt and a 30 rack of hams. We could invite Coach Izzo down to Rhodes College. But wouldn't y'all love to talk strategy with Tom Izzo about character and mental toughness?
Ironically, I had a chance to meet him in our gym in 2000 when they won it all. They practiced in our gym because Memphis was a regional. And you know what? The great thing about him is he's actually got a football background. He's what you see on the sideline is what you see. He's a genuine person. He really is.
Yeah.
Well, he's likened to Nick Saban a lot. Did I walk on you, Rob?
No. We're going to take a break. I want you to come back, and then Franz Beard will join us at the top of the hour from GatorBetMedia.com. But I'm with you, Doug and Matt. So we're going to talk a little bit more right after this quick commercial break on Sidelines. I want to say something about one of our sponsors, Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Eleanor Maynard, top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in 2022. She's a third-generation Hobson realtor, and she and her team are the best. You're looking to buy or sell a home in Memphis. Call her. You go to the Sidelines.live website. You'll see the Hobson Realty hyperlink on there with Eleanor's picture. That'll get you started with her phone number, emails, everything, okay? If you are looking possibly relocating to Memphis, maybe you're moving to Memphis to work for AutoZone or FedEx, Thomas & Betts, what have you, call Eleanor Maynard. Don't pull your hair out. Don't go crazy looking. Let her team do it. They'll get started. It's a turnkey operation, okay? Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty, our realtor here, and her team is ready to get to work. Let's go back real quick, Doug. I know we're all, you got a tight schedule this morning, but I love what you said about your evaluation on the judge index. And bring Franz Beard in here right now because this is fun. We talk about these different conferences. Tom Izzo, he's a man's coach. I mean, if you're a tough alpha male and you like coaching tough and overcoming odds, Michigan State's never really going to get the benefit of the doubt like, say, Ohio State or Michigan will. They got to earn everything they get. He's a tough guy, and he has tough players, Doug. I love your index. We need to start using that index on all kinds of coaches.
Well, the judgment index, these guys, if you want to Google it, I'm not pimping their services for this show, but they're based in Chattanooga, and they work with a lot of athletes. They worked with a Ryder Cup team one year and used the science of all these players to know who do we put out there at what different scenarios based on their judgment index profile. It's fascinating. And I have a feeling that one of the areas where if you find teams, maybe Coach Cal in Kentucky, with all their resources, for God's sake, that could be intrigued by, is there some science that can be brought to bear that helps us not only get five-star players, but also take into account what is their temperament? How do they do when the bullets are flying? And that's it's hard to predict human behavior. But, before I get out of the way, Rob, and I'm pivoting a little bit, for those fans like myself and half the field, well, 3/4 of the field now, who are licking their wounds, wondering what went wrong. Perspective, an old CEO boss I had liked to say, where you stand on an issue depends on where you sit. And frankly, speaking with a little Lee County, Alabama flavor here, I'm impatient. I'm kind of put off by a segment of Auburn fans who are busting Bruce's chops about not having perfect knowledge last August about going into the portal and which players to grab and go. That's all great. But in K-State, if I remember right, is making their big run with almost all transfer guys. Well, they hit it right. But if you're Auburn, would you rather be Auburn right now or UVA or UNC? UNC is going to be back. We know that. Would you rather be Auburn or Baylor? Would you rather be Auburn or Duke going out the way they did? I mean, I think Bruce squeezed all the blood out of this turnip that was there to squeeze. And if I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm extremely frustrated that with all of your tradition and history and the propaganda you get as Big Blue, deservedly, that you can't seem to punch through farther. In last year, one and done. This year, don't make it out of the first weekend. And I would double down and say, if you're looking at this Auburn team, which team do you come away admiring more, this Auburn team or a year ago when we had Kessler and Jabari Smith, and you go down the second round to a good but not great Miami team. Perspective.
I admire this team more. And Doug, you're right. You're very good at calming the waters. And Matt, as a coach, you like what you're – hey, Doug, Matt seems very mild-mannered on TV.
Oh, I believe it.
He's got a son that coached with Jimbo at A&M the last 4 years. He's on Dan Lanning's staff at Oregon now. Another one who's a financial advisor like me. So you got that alpha person. I don't know your wife, but you got some really good genes. And you've been at Rhodes for 32 years, but I love what Doug just said. I mean, I absolutely love it. And he makes me feel good now. Nothing against last year's Auburn team, but I have more admiration for what they did this year because I respect what Doug says. Jason Caldwell said that as well. Those are smart. Mark, you can't get any better than my man Mark Murphy. He's my mentor in print journalism inside the Auburn Tigers. I got a ton of respect. I don't like losing, but I got a lot of respect for what Doug said, and it now makes sense. But you as a coach, let's get your 2 cents worth.
Well, first of all, as an Iowa fan, I was envious during the game of a player like Allen Green. I mean, Allen Green is a championship.
Wendell Green.
See, I don't even know the roster that well. But he's a championship level guard. He can play for any championship team in America. And the way they played against Iowa on Thursday, I'm sitting there and thinking, oh, they got a chance to get to the Sweet 16. They could beat Houston. And Houston was down to them 10 1/2. And fundamentally, they didn't execute on the thing that if you do 3/4 of the time, they probably had a chance to win that game. They did it half the time. But you're right. Bruce got everything out of that team. He had a tremendous scout against Iowa. Iowa's best player is Chris Murray. They threw 2 or 3 guys at Chris Murray, got the ball out of his hands, and got that 17-point lead. Iowa made a late run to make it a competitive game, but from a scout and preparation standpoint, there's no better coach in the country than Bruce Pearl. He's going to get everything out of your ball club, and he's proven that.
And yet, Matt, I'm telling you, Bruce has spoiled the Auburn fan. Yeah. We are a historically mediocre, with like 2 periods in our history, the Sonny Smith run in the 80s, and then really just 1999. I'm not going to go back prior to the 80s.
Right.
There's somebody in 1930 that probably had a good year, but we have no business questioning Bruce's moves. Of course, there's margin of error. There's risk with roster management.
Yeah.
If he hits it right on Traore or Chance Westry, and we've got a scorer or two to match what you saw against Iowa. By the way, I really enjoyed watching the Iowa brand of basketball. Very high IQ basketball. And those guys deserve better, but it was fun to watch basketball the way it was really built to be played over the years.
And I'll say this, Doug, about Auburn. You look at some of the kids he's brought in. I mean, I watched Jabari Smith on the Rockets the other night. I mean, Kessler. I mean, he's taken how many years has Bruce been at Auburn now? 7?
2014, since 2014.
Okay, 9. I'm sorry, 9. Is that right?
Yeah.
You've been to a Final Four, right? Or was it the title game? I can't remember. Was it the title game?
Final Four.
Final Four.
Double dribble.
Yes. How many NCAAs? Pretty much every year. Am I wrong?
4 of the last 5 years.
4 of the last 5. And COVID was terrible for everyone. So, you know what? I mean, I don't know how you can complain. I don't.
You can't, but fans will. And Bruce has just gotten the commitment of or signed a guard. Aiden Holloway is going to help us next year.
Yeah.
In 24. He needs to build for 24 as a monster year right now. Go out and get some wing players, because the guards, 5-star guards, are coming. They're on the way.
Who do you lose from this roster? Who's not back?
It's that's the $1 million question, because Alan Flanagan has a COVID year, may come back.
Yeah.
Williams, I hope, will come back. He looked good at times. He can improve his game and be a real stud. The answer to your question is really going to be a tough one for Bruce. He's such a romantic that loves his players, is loyal to them. Are there a couple of players like Chris Moore or another one that are processed out? If you're a cold-blooded coach, you do some of that. Bruce historically has let that be the decision of the player, but I think he needs to improve the roster given the competition in the SEC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Doug, you hit on something. He's a romantic. I mean, he's loyal to his players, and they know it, and their families know it. Matt, that carries a lot of weight in recruiting, not just for the current roster, but from 40,000 feet above the view. And as a coach, other people see that, don't they? And they talk.
Well, we still remember him from Iowa, from 86 to 92.
Oh, yeah.
He was with Dr. Tom. People don't realize this. In 86, 87, Iowa won 30-plus games, led Vegas in the Elite Eight by 20 points at halftime, and lost that game late. And Iowa, arguably, now Iowa in 1980 went to the Final Four with Lute Olson. Ronnie Lester was the point guard, terrific guard. But 87 was the team. Us Iowa fans remember Bruce was a young assistant, and that was arguably one of Iowa's greatest years and was just short of going to the Final Four and possibly winning it all.
Yeah, and that's, again, what you do, it follows you around in coaching. But Doug, last thing, I know you got to get going, but tell us, and stay if you can, but Johan Traore, Trey Donaldson, that's a good-looking freshman, man, out of Tallahassee. Yeah. Didn't Charlie Ward, Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State, played his football in Thomasville, Georgia, multi-sport athlete? Didn't he coach him?
Yeah, I think that's right. I thank you for that catch. I had forgotten that. But, yeah, shame on me for not mentioning Trey Donaldson as one of the promising guards coming back. If his rate of improvement that we saw late season, especially much to Matt's disappointment, draining 3 straight monster threes the other night, if he continues to play pretty good defense, you've got him and Holloway, and I think Wynn Green may come back. I hope he does. Then all of a sudden, what was a weakness maybe becomes a little more reliable. And I would never bet against Bruce getting development of players like Traore and Westry, and then going out in the portal and getting guys that are plug and play. So, but meanwhile, not that it gets any easier when you look at the surging programs at Alabama, A&M, Arkansas. Congrats to Arkansas. I would have bet on A&M to make the Sweet 16, but look out for the Hogs.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, they're calling the Hogs over here in Arkansas. I mean,
I'm out of here.
Wow. Hey, look, Franz Beard's on here with us right now, GatorBaitMedia.com. We got Doug Dean in Birmingham, Matt Dean, the brothers Dean, over in Memphis at Rhodes, who's coached women's college basketball 16 years at Rhodes, and is got a son on the staff at Oregon with Dan Lanning. So got some very smart people on here. And then there's me, Junior Samples, over here. That's BR549. But Franz, you've never been one to hold back your opinions or your feelings. You're perhaps, along with our man Frank Duffy, two of the most interesting men we know. So let her rip on this Monday Sidelines.
Well, first and foremost, we discovered once again that the Big 10 plus 4 is really the Michigan State plus the little 13. The ACC, my goodness, you cannot be more overrated than those two conferences right there.
Here.
I was listening to you guys talk about the Duke hype, and it's true. I mean, Duke gets all these great players, and what people haven't figured out is look at what's going on there at look at what's going on there with Tennessee right now, and the Vols. As much as it pains me as a Gator to say it, the Vols could make the Final Four. The Vols could win it all. And everybody was talking about, they're not going to compensate for Zakai Ziegler. Well, Zakai Ziegler was important, but, have defense will travel. And these guys do play defense, and they're going to get after you. My goodness, they can play. They can make the Final Four. Alabama, my goodness, I mean, it's like gift wrap to the Final Four for them. They're going to be there. I think they're not going to even be challenged till they get to the Final Four. And then you got Arkansas, which is intriguing because the Hogs have so many, interchangeable parts in there. And Ricky Council, I'm telling you guys, Ricky Council could end up being the MVP of the entire Final Four. My team, though, that I think is going to shock everybody is K-State. Kansas State, now think about this. The best possible storyline in the entire tournament is Kansas State making the Final Four with Keontae Johnson. I mean, there can be no better story than that kid. And I've known him since he was a freshman here. And I've known him since he was in high school playing AAU ball for Boo Williams up in Norfolk, which, you want to talk about an AAU program that has consistently put big time players in college basketball. I mean, it's just that area is an absolute factory for good sports. And whether we're talking about football or basketball or even baseball, it is an absolute sports factory. And Boo Williams has always had it going. What a humble guy he is. And he's got his program named after him. They've named facilities after him. And they do it not because he's an attention grabber, but because he draws attention because of the things he does. And he just goes about it, says, you're going to say what you're going to say. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And it gets done. But I got to tell you what, that little point guard they've got, Nowell and Keontae Johnson, those are two guys that are everybody's matchup nightmare. And K-State has a chance. And goodness, Jerome Tang, what a terrific story that would be. You're talking about a guy, a career assistant, and he comes in there and brings in 13 scholarships available because everybody leaves when he gets there. He brings in 11 new faces, and I think they could win it all. I really do. That Tennessee K-State game is going to be an absolute monster. You want to talk about that's UCF type stuff. I mean, they're going to sit there. It's bare enough.
Friends, hold those thoughts. Hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick break because, Tennessee, Florida Atlantic, Kansas State, Michigan State. This is a great story. I didn't know all the guys left. More right after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Let me say something again about one of our sponsors, Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. Go to the website, Hobson Realty hyperlink is on there, sidelines.live. Here are the background. Eleanor is a fourth generation Memphis residential realtor, third generation Hobson realtor. Last year, she was in the top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in the Memphis realtor market. Okay. So if you live in Memphis, you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, you've got to have a team on your side. You can't do it yourself. You want to do it right, hire Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. Whether you live in Memphis, buying and selling a home, you live outside of Memphis, maybe you're getting relocated to Memphis for business, or you've got one of your kids that's getting transferred to Memphis, they need a realtor. Don't worry yourself sick. Don't stay up all night just playing Russian roulette trying to guess and get you the right realtor. Be smart, get the right one. It's all about who is in charge. Hire Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. You know, there are a lot of realtors out there. There's only one named Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. She is Sidelines official realtor. Wow. Franz, you know, Matt is an Iowa Hawkeye. He went to Drake, and we had a wager on that Auburn game. I agree with what Doug said about that game Thursday night. They do play basketball the way it was supposed to be played. Fran McCaffrey's a smart coach. Auburn was able to get the win. Thankfully, they could hit free throws that night. But I'm going to tell you what, you see where coaching really matters, Matt, like Doug alluded to. You know, Kelvin Sampson, play hack, you know, just keep hitting Auburn. I don't think they can hit free throws. It's no different than in football, putting 8 or 9 guys up on the line of scrimmage because you don't think the other quarterback can beat you with his arm throwing the ball, isn't it?
Well, I'll also take another look at that, Rob. They were making great post-entry passes, and Houston was in survival mode trying to make sure that they didn't make a layup and one and just put them on the line. And it started working, and it probably was a stretch there of about 5 or 6 possessions where they could have possible 12 points and got maybe 5 or 6 at best. If I'm trading 2 or 3 for 1, I'll take that as a head coach. Franz, I agree with you. I had Kansas State in my Sweet 16. There's not a better story in this tournament than Keontae Johnson. From what I've heard, and you know him a lot better than I've never met the young man, but just the interviews I've seen, what a terrific young man he looks like. Just so fortunate. I mean, I'm really happy for him to be back playing the sport he loves. Physically, he's just a specimen. He's a terrific player. But that being said, boy, that was a great game. I thought Kentucky, I know the fan base is on Cal a little bit. That was a terrific basketball game. And they hit 2 huge threes. Kentucky's up, I think it was 60-59, Franz, and just like a moon ball from about 24 feet on the left wing. And back-to-back threes. It just took everything out of Kentucky. It was 2 possessions, really daggers, I thought.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And you know, I know Oscar Tshiebwe came back to try to get a national championship. And my goodness, what a great story he is. You know, you're talking about a guy that, look at all the rebounds, and he plays below the rim. I mean, you know, we talk about all these high flyers and everything like this, but here's a guy that plays below the rim and just keeps plugging. Rebounds with his feet, which is what I love about him, because he's like Dennis Rodman. He never blocks out anybody. He doesn't. You know, I keep hearing all this stuff about, boy, they need to block out. Oscar Tshiebwe hasn't blocked out anybody in 2 years, and he's led the nation in rebounding because he watches the ball and he just goes to it automatically. Yeah. Dennis Rodman used to do that, was the best rebounder in the NBA as long as he was in the league because he just tracked the ball and found it. Yeah. But Kentucky, you know, without Severe Wheeler, Kentucky was dead in the water. If they had had him, you know, we're at that point in time where everybody's doing the if-onlys, and the fan base is all over Cal, but he could not control that injury. You know, Severe Wheeler, you put Severe Wheeler in that game, and all of a sudden, Kentucky's beating everybody. Kentucky probably would be about a 3-loss, 4-loss team for the whole year if Severe Wheeler had been healthy the entire year. But he was that important to what they do because there are very, very few point guards that really and truly understand the spacing. And when it's not just, you know, we talk so much about point guards. I say, boy, he gets the ball to the guy. Yeah. It's not just getting it to him. It's when you get into him. I mean, I can get the ball to an open guy, but feet aren't set and his shoulders aren't square, there's a really good chance he's going to miss the shot. But if I get it to him at the right time, he has a really good chance of making it. Severe Wheeler has that innate ability to see to see the whole floor and know when to get the ball to the guys so that they can make shots. And, I love Cason Wallace as a talent, but Cason Wallace, it does not have that ability to do it. He may do it in the NBA when it's a total open floor game, but Kentucky without Severe Wheeler wasn't going anywhere at all. And guys, I watched this stuff this weekend, and I look at the stories, look at the teams that have advanced and why they advanced. Michigan State advanced because Tom Izzo just got a bunch of guys that can't play to overachieve. I say that can't play. I mean, you look at the recruit rankings, and that tells me that he's got a bunch of guys that should be playing YMCA basketball. But guess what? They've got a shot. I think they're going to play K-State, and I think K-State's going to beat them, and I think Tennessee's going to beat Florida Atlantic, and I think we're going to have a rock fight to see who gets to go to the Final Four right there. We talked about Houston. I've known Kelvin Sampson's dad, Ned Sampson, was the coach at Red Springs, Lumbee Indian. Lumbee Indians. Kelvin is a center in Lumbee basketball, and Kelvin may be 5'6". Okay, and here is Ned Sampson coaching a bunch of Lumbee Indians, and every single year he up in Red Springs, he would wind up with about 3 guys that are 6'6" that came in from Asheville. Oh, they're cousins, right? Okay, Ned cheated just like Kelvin does. Kelvin is at a place where at Houston. I mean, my gosh. They could cheat in Houston and nobody would ever know it because of the fact that everybody has been doing it so long that it's just, they've changed it from cheating into an art form there. And I mean, Houston has got a chance though to be in the Final Four. And I hate them. I really do. But Kelvin can coach. I give him credit for that. But that Houston-Miami game, that's going to be a really good ball game. Xavier in Texas, another one that's going to be a really good ball game. And think about this. Princeton can beat Creighton. Who would have ever dreamed that Princeton University is going to be in the Elite Eight? But I think they could be, and I'd love see that happen too, because I'd love to see Greg McDermott get beaten. I mean, yeah, he can coach, but he cheats like crazy to do it. I'm intrigued by it all, guys. I know I'm running my mouth today, and I probably sound like I'm on crystal meth.
It's Monday. Look, Franz, you're not one to hold back an opinion. That's free speech is guaranteed in this country on this show as well.
And I'll throw a couple things at you guys that are pretty interesting. There's a lot of people who are thinking that Texas will make John Calipari a Godfather offer. You think about that. And I think, here's the thing that whoever takes that Kentucky job has to always remember. Until you've won 4 national championships, you're just another coach.
Yeah, man.
You look at this. Tubby won a national championship. He was just another coach. Rick won a national championship. Just another coach. Cal's won one. Just another coach, etc. Like that. Rupp had won 4, and 4 other coaches have won 1 each, and everybody who wins one gets compared to Adolph Rupp. Yeah, and you're only when you win 2, you only get to be the second best coach in the history. So there's a lot of pressure. Cal can go to Texas with the kind of talent that they've got in that state and the kind of money they have, and only God has more money than the Longhorns. We know that.
Yeah.
You know, only God in Texas have more money than the Aggies.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're getting ready to go into the SEC, which I think proved itself this weekend. It's the best conference, period, top to bottom, in basketball and in football, of course, and in baseball. By the way, my Gators, I don't know if y'all saw Thursday night, Brandon Sproat, 1 hits, Alabama, 11 strikeouts. First inning, 13 pitches, 5 of them hit 100 miles an hour. He struck out 11. And what was interesting was that from the second inning onward, he starts throwing changeup, slider, and only uses the heater when he has to. He threw 106 pitches, threw 93 more pitches after that, and only 10 of them reached 100 after that. So he was very judicious with his fastball. But the SEC has got it going, guys. And I think this is going to be a year we're going to have an SEC champ. And I think, you know, everybody's been talking about Auburn. Bruce will get it together. This was not a vintage year for Bruce, but I think this is a year when we saw how good a coach he is, because he willed those guys to win about half their ball games.
Yeah. Matt, I mean, Franz is on a roll, and he's just hitting one after another. But man, you think about coaches like Bruce Pearl, like Tom Izzo, that just, they get everything they can out of their players. And you know what I noticed? Those guys get along. They seem like they love one another. They care about each other, and they play with a lot of pride. I love that. That's what I love about coaching. And next question for you, Matt. Franz brought it up. Would Cal, does he stay at Kentucky and try to reinvent himself, or does he take the Texas offer?
Here's what's interesting. I'm going to ask Franz this as well. I think there's something to it, because why wouldn't you, if you're Texas and Rodney Terry's got you in the Sweet 16 and you're playing as good as anyone in the country, why wouldn't you just name Rodney Terry your head coach right now, unless you're going after Cal? I mean, I think there's a lot to that, because Rodney Terry has done a terrific job, deserves an opportunity. He was back there with Barnes, I think, back on the original staff of Rick Barnes. And right now that job's still not been named full time. I think there's a lot to it.
Well, Matt, if you think about a coach, you know, like Terry out at Texas, and Dave Cody keeps saying, why haven't they named him? Dave covered out there 37 years, sports anchor at Channel 7 in Austin. So he's very connected at Texas. Why don't they bring him on? I mean, what are they waiting on? And yeah, and Cal, I mean, again, he brings in so much of an aura. You know, 3 teams, UMass, Memphis, Kentucky to the Final Four, played for the national championship at Memphis. Kansas beat them, won it in 2012. That seems like a millennium ago. It was 11 years ago. But Kentucky has been to, I think, 17 Final Fours. And then Tom Izzo's been to 15 Sweet 16s himself. Wow. I mean, you know, Tom Izzo's a guy that, if you're going to make a Godfather offer, that's who I'd go after. I mean, I think he is. You talk about a deep discount value stock. Again, I'll say this about Tom Izzo. He's like a stock that's down 30% that's paying a 6% dividend. I want the guy that's the great coach. And I think a lot of the problems with a lot of teams, you may have a lot of talented players, but they're not really tough. You know, they've always been bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else around them, but they can't handle the truth when they're on a team full of guys like them that might be better. A tough coach pushes those guys to the max and finds out who the men are and who the quitters are. Tom Izzo would be my choice if I'm Texas, if I'm going to go make a Godfather offer. Franz?
Well, I would go after Calipari. I think there's as much chance of getting Tom Izzo to leave Michigan State as you have me of giving me a 747 and an owner's manual and telling me I need to fly it to Tokyo.
Well, and I don't think he's leaving. I don't think he's leaving at all. I'm just saying that's who I would want.
I agree with the thought that he is a guy to go after. But I think I think Texas has got to make the Godfather offer to somebody they can get. And the two guys I'm after, if I'm Texas, that I think I can get, number one would be Calipari, and number two would be Scott Drew. Okay, Scott Drew can already recruit the state of Texas. You're getting ready to go into the SEC. You know, you give Scott Drew Texas type of money and SEC type of money, and and Wacky Wacko is just down the road from Austin, or up the road. Yeah, it's up the road. I gotta get my geography right. You guys are better at geography.
Up by 30. Yeah.
but those are the two guys that I would get. And I'll tell you a third guy that I would seriously think about going after too, although I don't think he'll leave now, and that would be Mick Cronin, because Mick Cronin can flat out coach. And I think you could offer him, and here's what I think you could tell him is this. Okay, they're paying you $3 million a year at UCLA. So you're already in the 37% tax bracket. And you guys are finance guys. You know about this stuff. Yeah. You're already in the 37% tax bracket. And our wonderful occupant of the White House is getting ready to up that to 42%. And you got 13.3% state income tax on top of that. So, by the time you add all the stuff in, you're
hold that thought, Franz. Yeah, 13.5% personal income tax. That hurts. That could affect a coach. But we'll be right back. All right, Franz Beard, GatorBetMedia.com, Matt Dean over in Memphis, the coach at Rhodes College. We are talking a lot of basketball. Wes Moore is going to join us here in just a minute from ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, talking about the Hogs and their matchup with UConn. But, this is all very, interesting stuff. Matt, before Wes comes on quickly, if you can get your take, Scott Drew. Wow. That's a good one right there, because Waco is an hour and a half north of Austin. He knows the state. They already tried it with Chris Beard from Texas Tech.
I mean, Scott Drew, Franz makes great points. He knows the state. He can recruit. He's won a national championship. He's got a high-level program. As a former AD, and obviously I have not been in the SEC, but if Rodney Terry gets to the Final Four, I'd have a hard time not hiring Rodney Terry.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. And the problem with this is how many interim coaches actually end up being great head coaches. I mean, I go back to Florida when Galen Hall became the head coach for Charlie Pell. And he got hired because of what he did with Charlie Pell's players. But when it came time for his own players, Galen was a 6-5 coach. And the question is this: when Rodney Terry starts coaching his own players, is he going to be a Final Four coach? That's always the question we have with interims. I mean, I can't think of too many interim coaches who took the job as an interim and then became great head coaches.
Well, I agree with that. Matt, that's something to really consider.
It's a great point, but Franz, I'd also tell you that Rodney Terry probably recruited most of these guys on that roster, didn't he? So these are guys he helped bring to the university, and now he's proven he can coach them on top of it.
Well, you make valid points, you make extraordinary points, but here's the problem. The question is this: Galen, for example, took an NFL roster that and he had plenty to do with their success those first 2 years. He was 17-1-2 in his first 20 ball games as Florida's head football coach. That's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
But look at, the question is this: can you sustain it once you become the head guy? Now all of a sudden you're the guy that's out there meeting the alumni. You're the guy that spends the first 4 hours of your day doing all the nonsensical stuff. You're a head coach. I've coached AAU ball myself, and I know that the coaching part was the easy part. The hard part for me coaching AAU ball was having to go out there and raise money to make, to go to Kansas City for the national tournament. The coaching was a respite from all of these things. And the question I have for Jerome Tang is, okay, are you going to be able to sustain it when all of a sudden you got to spend the first 2 hours of your morning schmoozing the alumni?
Matt, that's a good point. Elaborate. Yeah,
it's a really valid point. And I think that's one where, Franz, you're taking a chance if you hire Rodney Terry. You can't argue that point. I cannot argue that point. I can also say, though, Calipari, everywhere he's been, he gets to a point where he kind of wears out his welcome. Even though Memphis didn't want to see him go, he got to that point where every year was like more money, this percentage on this, and Kentucky the same thing. And maybe Cal needs to feel like he needs to be rejuvenated a little bit and take the Texas job. Maybe that's why I don't know Cal, met him one time, but it makes sense for Texas to want Calipari. There's no question about that, because everywhere he's gone, he's taken a team, UMass, Memphis, and won a national championship, as you mentioned, at Kentucky. And great point about never going to be 4 titles at Kentucky like Rupp was. So now it's a chance to go somewhere. And once again, Cal never gets bothered about going to a football school, whatever you want to call it. He's the perfect fit for Austin, Texas. He really is. If you were to go there,
it'd be fun to see him go to a place like that. But I think you get so much money. I think that's something nobody really talks that much about. But I mean, we all see what money can do to people. And you wake up, and unless he does something just terrible, John Calipari, if he's fired without cause, he gets $80 million. I mean, just generational amount of wealth. And now you look at his press conferences, John Calipari is explaining and just going on and on and on about how Kentucky is always going to be the team. Everybody's going to play their best. Well, we know that. And when you take that job, you know that. That's like telling a Marine when he joins the Marine Corps, you may get shot at. You may be sent off to fight. You may go to combat. Well, you know that. Otherwise, you don't join. You don't join the Marine Corps. And I think that people need to think long and hard about when they're looking at any of these coaching jobs. better understand what comes with it. All right, let's switch gears, guys. Franz and Matt, we're going to bring on Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz in Little Rock. Wess, also sports anchor, Fox Sports Channel 16 there in Little Rock, covers sports all over the natural state, and he'll be with us here momentarily. We're experiencing technical difficulties. I have to play that old organ music in the background. But bottom line, the bottom line is everybody wants that coach that can get them to the promised land. And I like what both of y'all said. And just, it doesn't matter. Anyone out there listening, if you've coached your kids' 5th grade soccer team, and then you've got some assistants that help you, you know what it's like trying to manage time, to budget time. And I remember, I've talked to head coaches in different sports a lot over the years, like y'all have. What do they all tell you? Damn, man, I was shocked at how little coaching I got to do, and I became a head coach. I got a big paycheck, but I didn't get to coach that much. All right, let's call the Hogs 3 times. Razorbacks. Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. And Wes, we're driving over the ridge Saturday. Had to run had to miss the last few minutes of that Arkansas game. And I'm listening to the Arkansas radio network, and they went crazy. So did Musselman. So did the Hog fans. And Devontae Davis, I'll just let you take it from there. But here they are. I don't know if it's ever happened before in history, an SEC team making 3 consecutive Sweet 16s. I don't know. Has it, Wes?
Oh, I'm sure it has. I mean, you think of Florida winning back-to-back national championships, so I'm sure it's happened before in the SEC. Kentucky surely has done it, and Arkansas, I'm sure back in the day, did it 3 straight times, going to the Sweet 16 and making the run. You know, they won the national championship next year, got beat in the national championship game, and I think they made the Sweet 16 the next year, and so they may have had a streak of 4 or 5 in a row. I'm not sure, but no, the impressive thing is just about 2 weeks ago, a lot of people were writing this team off as this was a one of those years where Musselman wasn't able to get everybody on the same page. You know that a new team, a new year, it's not as easy as said is done. And Musselman made it look easy the first 2 years going to the Elite Eight, or I should say 2 of the first 3 years. The first year, that COVID year, they didn't do it. But, man, it honestly didn't look good. They weren't playing very well. But something has clicked this last week, and it's defense. The defense has won the game for these guys. I said they couldn't get in a scoring match with Kansas, and sure enough, they held them to 71 points. And you look back at Kansas, 6 of the 7 losses for Kansas, they were held under 70 points, and Arkansas almost did that. And that's how they beat them. They played great defense in the second half. And, man, no, you're right. The state is very excited once again. And to knock off the number 1 seed in that region, you look, why not win 2 more? Why can't you go to Houston? Why can't you make it to the Final Four? It's still going to be tough. UConn's got a very good team, and at times this year they've looked like one of the best teams in the country. But with the way Arkansas is playing, I like their chances.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you're listening to what Wes is saying, and Franz sent me some information. Florida made 4 straight Final Fours, 2011 to 2014. Man, that's incredible. But Matt, jump on here with what you saw and how this Razorback team is coming together late in the season, because they certainly don't lack talent.
They're really exciting to watch, and I said this earlier in a different segment. The times I watched them this year, even if they got down by double-digit points, they always fought back, either making the game or win the game. They're extremely talented. Their roster from top to bottom is as good as anyone in the country right now, and they're playing better defense, like Wes said. And honestly, watching UConn, St. Mary's played them really well for a large portion of the game, and all of a sudden UConn turned it on with a switch. I think it may be one of the best matchups in the Sweet 16 is going to be Arkansas and UConn, because the winner of that game definitely will have a big-time shot to advance to the Final Four.
Wes, this Razorback team, is Devontae Davis the spiritual leader of the team? And he's from Jacksonville. He's an in-state player. as so many of them are. But wow, the emotions, they have worked so hard to get to this point.
You know, Musselman and Devo Davis have had their ups and downs over the years. And Devo stepped away from the team for a couple of days after their trip to Hawaii, and there was a lot of speculation what went on and what happened for Devo to step away from the team. It was a short, couple of days, and he was right back. But there's no secrets. Those two guys have butted heads over the years, and they're a lot alike. They're so passionate, and Devo is the heart of this team, and you saw that in the second half. They're down 12, and it didn't look good. And Devo Davis willed them back and went on a scoring spree, and the country thinks of Devo as a scorer. Devo's not a scorer. I mean, Devo is a guy who plays. He's the best defender on the team. He does what needs to be done. And on this day, they needed some scoring. And I guess Kansas didn't get the scouting report that he's left-handed, and they just kept letting him drive to the left and finish with his left hand. And to give Devo credit, too, there were times that he wasn't a very good free throw shooter, and he definitely wasn't a good three-point shooter. And no one's in the gym more than him, and the coaches have verified that. He knocked down the free throws when they had to have every single free throw, and he hit and he's been a much better three-point shooter the second half of this season, and he hit a big three in that game. And everything, that's what he broke down, and he teared up, man. And I did too. Watching him, it was it was pure emotion coming out on TV, and there were more than one Razorback fans that teared up with Devo watching that, and he was talking about putting in so much work and how it's paid off. And I was just thinking about how much work he has put in, and to see that pay off, man, that is special, because like I said, he wasn't a good three-point shooter. He wasn't a good free throw shooter. He put in the work. It paid off at the biggest time of the year. He led them back, beat the number one team, the defending champs, and now they're moving on to the Sweet 16. Pretty cool story.
Oh, it is. And I just think about, I told you how much I'm a big fan of the shooter, Pat Bradley, but he talks, the connection, and this isn't the only state it's like that, but as a Memphian who spends a lot of time in Arkansas parking, when we were all over yesterday scouting duck holes and retrieving boats in Newport and Grubbs. And these little towns all over Arkansas, like Stuttgart and Ulam, and, here at Levesque and, Little Rock, big towns. There's a connection in this state, no matter where you go. The pride, Razorback pride, it is so powerful. It is palpable. It's incredible, Wes. And Franz Beard, GatorbackMedia.com's on here, and I know we've been talking about this basketball, and you talk about Eric Musselman and getting every ounce. He's got a talented roster. But Franz, you got to say, quick question for Wes, but I'm just saying, to pull this together, and this team to pull it together this late in the season and overcome being called soft, and weren't tough, they've taken that to heart, hadn't they?
Well,
yeah.
Here's the thing that they have done is Eric Musselman has been patient enough to let the pieces fit together, and they haven't always fit together. But see, that's the thing about it. People don't realize you can get it fitting together this late in the season, because guess what? The NCAA tournament is not about the best team in basketball. It's about the best team for 3 weeks. You go 6-0, you win. That's it. You don't have to be the best team for the entire season. You only have to be the best team for 3 weeks. And Eric Musselman has all of his pieces fitting together right now. It took a while to get freshmen to figure some things out. I love Anthony Black. I wish he would come back next year, but that's a pipe dream, because I just love the way that kid just, whatever needs to be done, he figures out how to do it. You got Devo Davis in there. Ricky Council, I think, could end up being if Arkansas makes the Final Four, And they win it. I think it's going to be because Rick Council is that guy that just figures things out as well and does what it takes to win. And that's what it takes. That's why teams go suddenly out of nowhere. You look at Baylor a couple years ago when they won it. It was all about the pieces fit together at the right time.
Yeah, Wes, I agree with that. And I had another comment from a listener. Could Arkansas be the equivalent of what Ole Miss did in baseball, coming from all over the place, and look what they're doing?
Yeah, let's don't forget this team was, preseason top 10 because of all the talent that they do have. What's happened in this now, they're still without Trevin Brazil, and he would have made a huge difference on this team. He was arguably the second best player on the team. But to go without Nick Smith, your best player, and then Trevin Brazil, your second best player, for months and months and months, it took a while for this team to figure out who they were. And then Nick Smith came back, and then it was kind of weird because you get your best player back, and the team has to figure out how to play with him again. And honestly, there are times they're still trying to figure that out. And you see that on the court. And Nick hasn't made any contribution whatsoever in the NCAA tournament. He has not played well at all. And that's kind of scary if you're an opponent, because if they can figure it and he can figure out his game, they could be a really tough out for somebody. Yeah. And I still think Nick Smith's going to get it together. And that's what Coach Musselman kept saying. This team is getting better. This team is better this week than they were last week. And he said the way they're working, they're going to be better next week. And I can see how they'll be better next week if they can get Nick Smith going and the defense. And he said, look, we're still putting in new defenses every single day in practice. We're putting in new offensive plays in practice. Yeah. This team is continuing to get better. And I can't wait to see what they look like next week against UConn.
Yeah, man, we have unfortunately run out of time. God, Wes, it's so good having you on here. What are y'all talking about today? And look forward to your next visit. Hogs need to be alive. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine, Aaron Torres. He's with Fox Sports Radio. He's going to jump on board. Aaron's a big UConn fan, and he does a lot of Arkansas stuff, so his worlds are colliding. He's going to join us today at 11:30. We got Bubba Carpenter, the color commentator for the Razorback baseball team. They have won, 13 in a row. They just swept Auburn. They moved up to number 5 in the country in the D1 rankings, and they got LSU this weekend. Arkansas, LSU, and Baton Rouge, number 1 versus number 5. I'm going to be down there actually on spring break, go to a couple of games. So I'm excited about that series. The baseball team, the basketball team, things are going good in Fayetteville right now, and things are going good in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible, man. Hey, great show, everybody. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, Matt Dean, Franz Beard, Doug Dean. This has been a lot of fun on this Monday. And remember, go out and we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Get your brackets. Take a look at what they look like now. Until then, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.